He has more than 10 years of experience both in UK and in Hong Kong, and has worked in various roles, including pricing, reserving, modeling, capital modeling, and risk. In terms of companies, he started his career in a consultancy firm in the actuarial space, worked with a broker and with a few direct insurers. Just to give an academic background, Xavier has graduated from the London School of Economics with a bachelor's degree in Actuarial Science, and also has graduated from the Imperial Business College with an MBA, again UK. He is always happy to have a chat with young and aspiring actuaries. He has his own page, Insta page, which is mr.hongkong.actuary. You guys can reach out in case you have anything there. Thanks a lot, Xavier, for taking out the time and interacting with us and addressing the students here.
No, thank you very much, Akash, for the introduction. And again, just wanted to say very honored to be here and be able to speak to all of the many followers of obviously of your institution. And I see there are quite a few number of attendees here. So if I'm honest, a bit nervous. Haven't seen a crowd this big, especially in the online world. But again, just very much appreciated for reaching out and inviting me to be here. And just a quick one for everyone. As Akash said, I do have an Instagram page. Please just follow me. I'm having a post tonight as well, but I post every Saturday. But on top of that, if you have any questions, you want to talk to someone, please reach out, because I found that I needed some help when I was younger. So if I can help you guys out as well, yeah, I'm more than happy to do so. So yeah, thank you very much, and back over to you, Akash.
Great. So sorry, I see Nupur, you have raised your hand. Any issue, Nupur? You are able to hear us? Or
yeah, I can hear you, Akash, but Xavier is a little soft. So if that can be fixed, it will be great.
Sorry about that. I will.
Yeah, it's better now. It's better.
Yeah, I will hold my microphone here, so please don't mind my arm being here all the time.
Great. Thank you, Nupur ma'am. Great. So, while going through your introduction, you have worked in a lot of diverse areas. So you started off with consulting in actuarial space, risk. Basis what all you have done in the 10-year vast career experience that you have, how do you define what does an actuary do?
That's a great question. I think it's very hard to tell people what an actuary does. I mean, not sure about you guys over in India, but for me in Hong Kong, you tell everyone, or even in UK, you tell everyone, oh, I'm an actuary, and everyone says, oh yeah, I've heard of it. But then you ask them, do you actually know what it is? And they're like, not really. Is it like accounting? Is it math? Is it like statistics? Or actually, to be honest, I would say it's actually all of that and more. Because an actuary, I would say, is someone who is very good with numbers, obviously, because you have to do lots of statistics, mathematics, probabilities. But I think on the flip side, you're not only a calculator, you're not only a computer. What you're doing is actually helping companies analyze, for example, at the moment, analyze their risks, or if you're doing pricing, help them price insurance products well. If you're doing reserving, make sure the company has enough money to pay out claims. So it's a combination of things, because you're not working alone. Whenever I work with other colleagues, finance people, in the pricing side, underwriting, you have to know the business. So you have to know a bit of law as well. For example, you have to know economics, you have to know accounting. Even on the claim side, you have to be able to understand what everyone's talking about. So I feel like an actuary is someone who just, if you allow me to be a slightly arrogant, actuaries are just, the smartest people in any meeting room, just simply because they know a bit about everything, but they don't pretend to be experts in everything. So they know a bit enough to talk to people, but whenever it gets a bit too technical, too in depth, they allow the people who are actually experts to do the stuff. But on top of that, we are also experts in numbers. So I would also argue we are the original data scientists, which is a term which you hear a lot at the moment.
Great. So I think echoing the same thing out here in India, it actually is the same thing broadly. But there is one thing that is there in India. Actuaries are a lot associated with insurance, only insurance. So as soon as I think when we say actuary, people say, oh, it's something to do with insurance. But
Yes.
it has a wide area of application that you have brought out, which is important for all of us to know actually.
Can I also, that's an interesting one, because whenever you say, oh, actuaries work in insurance, whenever you say insurance in India, what's the reputation of insurance in India actually? Is it, I'll tell you a bit more, because in Hong Kong, whenever you tell people, oh, I work in insurance, they're like, oh, just get away, because they think you're trying to sell them something. That's the feeling in Hong Kong. And then
True, same. Yeah,
it's the same.
you are portrayed as an insurance agent. Arey, policy becega. Sorry. Yeah, you come here to sell policies.
Yes, and then it's only after I say, oh yeah, but I work in insurance, but I'm an actuary, and then they say, okay, nice to meet you. But if you're selling them something, they run so quickly away.
True.
Yeah, so I think insurance and actuarial, I think they're very related. I think you're right, and it sounds like in India it's also very too connected. But what I'm trying to say is that the reputation of insurance in Hong Kong is not great, but the reputation of actuaries is really good. And I think it's a shame, because insurance is actually not such a bad industry. It's just that you get the people's impression of insurance is really bad, because all they hear about is I just want to, you're just selling me something, right? So I think it's also up to us actuaries to sort of convince people that it's not all about sales. There are actually people behind doing all the calculations. We're not trying to lie and make you just pay us money for no reason.
Perfect. So taking it forward, Xavier, so right now India is experiencing a very big second wave of COVID. We just discussed some time back that things in Hong Kong are relatively stable. In this entire volatility, uncertainty, all the complexity, ambiguity, there is an acronym for it, VUCA world, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. How do you see the scope of actuaries shaping up?
Yeah, that's a good question, and absolutely loving the VUCA. I think it was coined by I forgot who, but basically it's a very very famous acronym. And just want to say before I answer, just a lot of you guys, or pretty much most of you guys, or all of you guys, are from India. So just want to say, stay safe out there. I did read about the massive second wave in India, and it's not nice to read about, if I'm honest. But just want to say, stay safe. We will get through this all together. Okay. So anyway, back to your question. Yeah, in this VUCA world, why are actuaries important, and how can our skill sets be used, or how do we deal with all of this stuff? Well, as I said just now, actuaries are the smartest people in any meeting room, and we also tend to know a bit about everything. So I think that makes us perfect for adapting in this VUCA world. I'll give you an actual example that I've just been dealing with at work. So in insurance, there's a very common insurance product, which is property insurance. Whenever your building has damage or it's burned down or something, insurance companies will pay you back and compensate your company. So there's also a bit on property insurance that you might not know about, which is called business interruption. This is not as common if you don't work in business, but business interruption is basically when your building burns down and you can't open your shop, for example, and you lose revenue. When that happens, insurance will also pay you back for your lost revenue. So historically, what happens is that business interruption you can only claim for money from insurance companies if you have some sort of property damage, so that you've got proof. Look, my building's burnt down. I can't open. Can you please pay me back? But with COVID, you know, especially for most of last year, what this has given rise to is something called non-damage business interruption, NDBI. This is such a big thing, and you know, it's always been here, right? But we've never ever heard of such a big thing until last year. The reason is because people realize, you can actually have a situation where your shops are closed, but without any property damage because of COVID. So in Hong Kong, we face, you know, lockdowns. You know, we can't even go out of our houses to shops because the government says it's too dangerous if everyone's on the streets. So then all these companies are coming up to insurers and saying, look, I want to claim money back. And insurers are saying, no, you've got no property damage. But then they say, look, but I've got this non-damage business interruption. And then this is where actuaries come in, because I remember this time last year, which was like about the first wave of COVID in Hong Kong. I was like, what is this NDBI stuff? I don't know, but I had to quickly learn it, right? I had to read all about this in a couple of days and then analyze what risks there are to our company, look at what our exposures are, and then, you know, look and see how we can help the frontline sales, underwriting teams, or relationship management teams to see how we can support them, if we can give them discounts, if we can actually pay out claims, because all of this affects our company, right? If we pay out too many claims, our company might, you know, be at risk of going bankrupt. Obviously, for big insurers, it's less likely, but for smaller insurers, you know, they have to balance the risks against, you know, making their customers angry. So VUCA, definitely something that is very good for actuaries, because, you know, especially in such an uncertain world, what do people turn to? They turn to, you know, facts, numbers, and who does that the best? Well, it's all of us.
Yeah, so broadly, so can I say that, let's say, the employment would have gone up in the last year in the actuarial domain in the world as such?
So I think I can't speak globally, because I don't know the whole market across the world, but at least, you know, in Hong Kong and in UK, whenever you talk about employment, right, and I'm pretty sure in India and even US as well, if you talk, and you know, all the other countries that I have not named, but when you talk about unemployment, everywhere, all you hear is, look, unemployment rates are rising, everyone's losing their jobs. Oh, I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm trying to get a job, but I just can't find it. This is the whole world, and I you know, I see that. But if you talk about actuaries, right, the last year I've actually seen and heard a lot of actuaries changing jobs even. It's very common, you know, it's simply because with more uncertainties, the flip side of that is there's more opportunity. So for example, a smaller insurer might not have an actuary before, but they think, oh, I can't, I just need an actuary now, because I need someone who can tell me what's actually happening. I mean, people can't base their decision making on just experience anymore or gut feel, because there hasn't been anything like COVID historically. I mean, you could argue there was like the Black Plague in Europe back in 18 something, but you know, there was probably no data back then that we could use. So, I mean, how can you then make use of experience, or, you know, what limited data we can use at the moment? Well, actuaries are best at doing that, because we've got a blend of data analysis, but also expert judgment. So then what you see is that even smaller companies are hiring actuaries to help out. And then obviously, where do they find these actuaries from? They take them from bigger companies. So then bigger companies have lost some actuaries, so they have to re-employ. So this whole cycle continues. So actually in Hong Kong and UK as well, there have been, you know, I'm not going to say there's been like a super big demand for actuaries, but certainly it has not dropped at all. I mean, employment rates have gone up, unemployment rates have gone up, but for actuaries, this has not gone up at all, actually.
Perfect. Yeah. So I would say quite similar here in India as well. the employment, in fact, has picked up quite a steam during this last 1.5 year.
And I think, I mean, it's great as well, because would you say that the people who are, about to graduate, a lot of my, I've got friends who know people who are, in their 20s, they're about to graduate, and they're very worried, that they're gonna be unemployed once they graduate. Would you say that Actuaries as a graduate is quite a good time to graduate? Not today, obviously, but in half a year's time, for example. Do you think it's quite a good time to be in this market?
Yeah, I'll give one of our examples. So, in fact, even in this time, at IQS, there were 6 to 8 students that got absorbed as internships with Marsh. Marsh and McLennan absorbed them with 6 to 8 internships. They are not yet graduating. They are in their second year, going in the third year. So even for internships, there has been a great demand that we have seen in the last 1.5 years.
And Marsh, obviously, I used to, so when you introduced me and you said I worked in a broker, actually I worked for Marsh and McLennan, exactly. All I can say is great company, and for 6 students to get internships there, that's amazing. And it shows what a great time to be an actuary at the moment.
So, like India right now has broadly, I would say 450, 460 odd actuaries. Other developed economies like the US has 32,000, UK has over 15, Hong Kong itself has 1,000 odd actuaries. How do you see the potential in India as an actuary market and for them to go abroad?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you talked about the numbers there, so US, UK, and even Hong Kong. So for example, Hong Kong, just to give you a bit of a context, we've only got about 7.5 million people here, and we've got a few thousand, maybe like 2,000-3,000 actuaries here. Obviously life and non-life, right? But if I talk about general insurance, maybe we're talking about 500, something like that. So obviously the general insurance market is a lot smaller, but then again, Hong Kong as a city, we're not even a country, right? As a city, we are 7.5 million, right? Compared to India, you're talking about 1 billion plus people, and you're telling me there are only 450 qualified actuaries. That all I can see, right? I mean, this is basic economics. It's supply and demand. You have demand for actuaries, because you have so little, but your supply is not that many as well. There's only 450. So what do? All I can say is that your benefits are gonna go up, and I can share a bit of experience as well. So for example, in Malaysia and even in mainland China, historically there have not been many actuaries there, especially general insurance actuaries. And then all of a sudden, the regulators said, look, every single company needs to have a qualified actuary working inside the company. Overnight, obviously this happened over, it's not one day, but over a period of 2-3 years, basically every company was like, oh, I got to hire someone now, but I can't find anyone. What do? Either I try to train more people locally to become actuaries, or I hire people from abroad. But my point is, the demand suddenly went up. And I've got friends, right, who, same age as me, so worked about 10 years. They are suddenly chief actuaries of their companies simply because there was no one else. And, historically, actuaries are not paid super well in Malaysia. They're paid quite well, compared to an average person, but not super well. But, once she got a job in Malaysia, chief actuary, she's getting paid as much as, the CFO, which is quite rare. She's living like a king in Malaysia. So I see a lot of that happening in India, especially when you have, growing insurance lines there. So I used to look after the Indian, entity of my company as well. I can tell you a bit more. So I used to work in Generali. So I used to look after future Generali as well. in India, and they have lots of growing lines of businesses like crop insurance, for farmers. Motor insurance is always big there, but even the property book, that one is so small right now compared to the whole of India, right? So the moment one day the regulator says, look, we need some quantitative skill set in India, actuaries are gonna grow in demand like crazy. And when that time comes, I mean, don't even talk about Indian actuaries going abroad, right? You might even want to get people from abroad to move to India to work. So watch out for this space.
Great. So just to share, the Indian Regulatory Authority, which is the IRDAI, very recently, its chairman, Dr. Kuntia, had highlighted that they need at least more than 1,000 actuaries. It's very, very recent. In one of the conferences, he came and he told that India needs more than 1,000 actuaries. And even I had I had done some consulting projects with Future Generali General. So perfect. So they are expanding. They have a good crop portfolio and they are expanding into other areas as well.
Yeah, and the expansion is, I mean, I just can't. It's when I see India, right, I sort of see similarities in mainland China as well, because in terms of population size, it's quite comparable. I mean, literally two of the biggest countries in the world, right? And I think China is also in a similar position in India, where when you talk about qualified actuaries, there aren't that many. Okay, but if you talk about the number of actuarial students, that is growing heavily, because we're trying to get local people to become qualified. So I feel like India is going along the same path as well. So again, IAQS, your program is going to promote a lot of that to happen. So I think it's a great time to be an actuary as well.
Great. So coming to the academic side, Xavier, so you pursued your actuarial studies from the London School of Economics and Political Sciences, doing your bachelor's in actuarial science. Two questions on that. Why did you prefer going down the college route for actuarial studies? And what benefits are you seeing today, or how has it helped you in your career ahead?
So when you talk about the college, I think because there are a few ways to be a qualified actuary. So some people, after middle school or high school, they jump directly to working without even doing university. It is possible, especially in UK. And the alternative route is obviously do a university degree, bachelor's degree, but not in actuarial science. For me, the reason why I chose to become, be a bachelor in actuarial science is because, firstly, it gave me exemptions from the official exams, and secondly, instead of doing the exams by myself while working, I could spend 3 years or 3 years learning about the actuarial techniques, all the mathematical models and all that in 3 years in my own time. So that really gave me a proper understanding of the mathematical theory, which when I go into work, I don't really need to read about it again, because it's already, I spent 3 years studying it. When I contrast that with a few of my friends who didn't do the actuarial science route, they're also actuaries, but what they find is that whenever they read about some theory at work, they actually have to read it again and spend more time, because let's be honest here. I'll be honest here. When I do exams, the qualification exams, and I'm studying for them, I'm not putting 3 years into studying it for them, right? I'm only spending like 1 or 2 months, and even in those 1 or 2 months, it's probably not full time. It's probably like a few hours after work. And when you're spending, relatively so little time studying something, you just want to pass. The chances are, after you've passed the exam, you don't really remember all of it, right? So I think it's beneficial to study something that you're passionate about, obviously, which for me was actuarial science. Spend 3 years doing it, really get your grounding correct. And then when you come to working, you won't have to think about it again, because it becomes, part of your memory already.
Perfect. So broadly, I think you perfectly put it in India also. It's quite the same thing. So typically, the high school here is equivalent to your 12th. After that, Indians mandatorily generally go to university education, but that university education is not necessarily connected to the actuarial side of things. So they are studying one thing at the university and simultaneously preparing for papers. So it's pursuing two different things. The university exams are on something else, and sometimes allied. I would not say completely different, but sometimes it is quite allied to what the actuarial things is. So broadly, statistics or mathematics, but it's not completely the same. And typically the same thing, giving an exam by studying 4 months and trying to clear stuff out.
Yeah. So I think definitely helped me. So and also the exemptions helped as well. So while my friends were doing 15 exams to qualify, I was only doing 7 more. So that's always a helpful thing.
True. So when we started off, you highlighted that we let's say actuaries are the first data scientists of the world. So now we see actuaries entering into very diverse fields like artificial intelligence, climate change, space exploration. Could you throw light on these emerging areas and how the demand for it is? Also, is it advisable for students to take interest in such fields?
So I think that's a good one, because data scientists, it's a term that is very recent. So it's only in these 10 years that you hear it all the time. Back take 50 years ago, right? This term wasn't. It just wasn't a term, because when you talk about data scientists, what are you actually talking about? You're just talking about statistics, a bit of data analysis, put it all together in a business context. That's what actuaries did, as I said before. So that's why I think for now, when you talk about actuaries branching into space exploration, even like Tesla in US, they're like, oh, we want to hire actuaries. And then when I talk about like the big Chinese companies like Tencent, Alibaba, those guys are hiring actuaries as well, but not necessarily doing actuarial insurance work. And even in Hong Kong locally, so we've got this thing called Asia Miles, which is basically like a loyalty program for airlines. So every time you fly to somewhere, you get points, and then if you get enough points, you can get rewards. You can buy stuff with it. And actuaries are actually actively working in those spaces as well, and supermarkets as well, loyalty cards, how you do maximize the shelf product placement. Actuaries are involved in there as well, simply because there's just so much data for us to analyze. So then when you talk about actuaries branching into these non-insurance areas, what companies are looking for is not your insurance skill set, but more like your data analytics skill set and also your communications. Because the reason why I say that is because I've worked with data scientists before, and they're very smart guys, right? Extremely smart. They can build the best models ever. But when it comes to the business context, right, sometimes they find it very hard to explain what's actually going on, because they spend a lot of time building the models, and they spend less time compared to us actuaries finding out what's going on in the world. A good example that I recently had was, we were trying to price, trying to find out, what factors affect whether people pay for insurance and how much they can pay. We asked the data scientist team to help us analyze this. What they came back with, right, is that, we should charge higher premiums to people who are, above 80 years old, because, whenever we increase their prices by 20% or something, they never say no. And then, I heard that and I was like, yeah, but there's a reason, right? Because, potentially when you're 80 years or above, you probably don't know how to say no, because you're not very good with computers. You can't use your phone to, smartphone to cancel your policy or find another policy, right? So, while what the data science team was saying is correct, in the business world, you can't do that because the regulator would penalize you for taking advantage of old people. You're doing something that's morally not correct. You might bring reputational risks to your company. So it's us actuaries that, we understand the models, but we can also understand whether it's okay to use it in the real world or not. And that combination is what allows us to branch into other fields.
Quite true.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what do you think are the most important skill sets that are required to be an actuary?
So I'm going to quote, okay, to be honest, I don't know who came up with the original quote, but it has been reshared a lot of times by the current president of the IFOA, so the UK Actuarial Institute. So he quotes someone who said, "An actuary who is just an actuary is not a good actuary." So what that means is that, when you talk to, a random person about, I'm an actuary, right? And all they say is, "Oh yeah, you're just a calculator, you're just a computer, you just do math and stuff." So an actuary who just does that is actually really bad, So I've met actuaries who all they talk about is just building the next greatest model. Look, I can save 5 seconds from my model run. It's amazing. Instead of 10 minutes, I can do it in 9 minutes. And then they're all about these theories about distributions. Instead of using the normal distribution, they're like, "Oh, look, check this out. I've got this Pareto extreme value theory model or whatever." And, it's great, right? You're saving the company maybe like $1 million, but the company's earning like tens of billions, right? $1 million is not that much in the context of things. So I think the most important skill set that actuaries need to have is just the ability to learn quickly and not to not to close yourself from learning anything. Even for me at the moment, I do lots of numbers, right? So I hate reading, if I'm honest. I like my math. I like all these sort of things. But even now, about the the non-business interruption claims that I talked about previously, I have to read about law. Okay, I was reading about a law case in US in 2010, just to see if I can apply it to my current situation and my current claims. At the moment, we've got lots of workers' compensation, employees' compensation claims, with all this work from home sort of stuff. When an employee injures themselves at home, can they make an employer's or workers' compensation claim? Well, you could argue, they're not in the office, right? But then again, they are working. So, do we pay or not? And they came to me and I was like, I don't know, man. I'm not a lawyer. But then what I could do is read a bit of law cases, look at the data that I've got and see what my opinion is, and then give that to, my boss and the CEO. So then they can make the best decisions. So I think, again, a long-winded way of answering your question is the most important skill set that an actuary should have is the open-mindedness and the ability to learn, not just about their own field.
Great. Just to add to that, so broadly, what I have seen over the period of time is broadly, I find the other two skill sets that I found very great one was problem solving. As a brain, you need to have that thing in mind that you are open to solving problems, because everyone comes up with problems to an actuary.
Yes.
So using data, using gut, using expertise, I mean, giving the right sort of solution to the problem is something which is very important, which is supported by all the skill sets that you talked about. So broadly, problem solving, open-mindedness, critical thinking, all add up to what skill sets that would be required, let's say, for to be a good actuary.
Yeah, and just because you said people come to Actuaries, I just have to tell you this. So this is also when I was in my time at Marsh. So you could probably share this with your 6 interns. But basically, I was in the team, the actuarial team, obviously. But then, like what I kept getting was just people from random parts of the company, just coming up to me, asking me all these questions that I'm like, why are you asking me? And all of them say, oh yeah, because you're like the wizards of the company, right? You know everything, and all I'm doing is just getting Excel, Microsoft Excel, and just doing some calculations there. And they're like, oh, but you're the wizard, you have the answers to everything. So again, that's your I think I fully agree with what you're saying, is that critical thinking, people just naturally come to you. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I don't know, why, but they just come to you. And don't be closed, and try to help them solve their problems. So again, problem solving, definitely a great skill set as well.
So, so before I end and go on to the student set of questions, what are the 3 things that you feel are important for actuaries, or sorry, aspirants who are pursuing actuarial science, and any advice with the students?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've been to university talks as well, and even like career talks for even younger people, and the question they ask is what advice would you give? And there's just so many, which is why I think I can't say everything, or else we'll be talking until tomorrow. But I think again, if people want to reach out to me, feel free. But I think the one thing that I would say is when you're still young and you still got relatively less commitments in your life, try to learn as much as you can. Be a sponge, right? Try to absorb everything. At work, don't when people from other departments come to you, don't close them off. Try to understand, give them your time, because the thing is, when you're young and you're an aspiring actuary, the biggest asset you have is your time. And the reason why I say this is because I'm compared to all these university students, I'm actually quite old now. I always thought I'm a very young person, but I talk to these guys and they're like in their early 20s, in their teenagers. I'm like, wow, that was so long ago for me. But when I think about that, what I really did when I was younger was I just studied so much. I mean, you mentioned I was qualified as an actuary. I studied for the FRM, did a master's as well, simply because I had time. If you ask me now, I've got a family. My parents are getting older as well. You have to take care of them, and even in your career, right? You're sort of getting more responsibility because you're more senior, and then even on the physical side, your body, you're spending more time, taking care of your body as well, because when you get older, your body starts to break down as well. Whenever you have all these things coming at you, if you tell me, right, do I have 30 minutes to study? I can tell you, I don't have the time. So while you're still young, just take as much as you can, and it will pay off when you get older.
Great. So that's quite a lot. So we go on to the students' questions, guys. So the forms that you had filled up had certain a question field. So we have shortlisted 4 to 5 questions that we found would be very relevant. And after that, we would open it up to you guys to ask us or ask questions. So, and I feel some of these questions come to us also being in the education domain now for more than 10 years. So, how do you think an actuary can get into entrepreneurship?
That's that's a good one. So if I'm honest, just purely the actuarial skill set, if I'm very honest, just being brutally honest here, will not get you will not be able to get you to be an entrepreneur. Because what are our skill sets? Well, we analyze problems very well. We're open to learning, but it's very hard to just, study the actuarial qualification and say, look, I want to start my company. Because what you need to do is you have to really try and be an entrepreneur before you can be one. And I think, the actuarial skill set of learning quickly, problem solving, it would help you. Because what you have to learn is, for example, you will realize that actually sales tactics are actually very important in your world, in any world. Even as an actuary, when you're working in a company, you think, oh, I can just do reserving for like 50 years or whatever. And what you realize is that actually you need to sell yourself as well. So I would say, as an actuary, can you be an entrepreneur? Yes, but don't fool yourself into thinking, if I'm qualified, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, because that's not enough. And one of the things is that, just to tell you a bit about myself as well. So I've also got, I know people who open companies in Hong Kong. And the thing about that is, if something's not working, don't be afraid to, immediately shut it down and try something else. Because it's one thing, failing is not a problem if you fail fast. It's failing over like 10 years, that's your main problem. Because if you're failing over 10 years, you've basically just wasted 10 years of your life. And we are not, we are people, so we have limited lifespan. So, if you're gonna try to be an entrepreneur, try it out. But if you fail, don't try to drag it on for too long. That's just my thoughts.
Great. Yeah. So the second one that we've chosen from the question set that have come is, what according to you would be more challenging for actuaries in the coming future?
What would be a challenge for actuaries in the coming future? Okay. I think it's so obviously with the rise of data scientists, that you also mentioned about, I think there is a danger that actuaries become, in some ways, I'm obviously generalizing here, but actually there's a risk that actuaries become the accountants of maybe 30 years ago. What I mean by that is, when you think about 30, 40 years ago, accountants, the profession itself, amazing. Everyone wants to be an accountant. Even now, if you look at, one of the biggest companies in the world, like the Standard & Poor's 500, a lot of their CEOs are, they've got the accounting qualification. Even in Hong Kong, not just America, Hong Kong, China, everywhere in the world, look at the CEOs. Chances are a lot of them are accountants, right? But then, that was 30 years ago. You think about now, or even 10 years ago, right? I don't know about in India, but if you talk about Hong Kong or UK or something, you say you're an accountant, yeah, people are like, yeah, it's a good profession, but people won't go like, oh wow, you're an accountant. They don't have that reaction anymore compared to 30 years ago, right? And that's because, a lot of the stereotypes about accountants is like, oh, they're boring. They only do like balance sheets. They only talk about numbers. Actuaries are going to become like that, right? If we don't make ourselves better, if we don't market ourselves more, if we don't try to branch out and talk to people more, we become the accountants of tomorrow. And that is a risk, because with data scientists coming up, they are smart guys. And, one day, if they replace us, that is going to be a big challenge for us to wrestle that control back over them.
I don't know, but it echoes here in India as well. I still remember chartered accountancy here in India. I think is considered one of the best, and I am a chartered accountant myself, so was considered, I would say, one of the biggest professions. These days the reactions have changed. I think we can echo that, and everyone here would also. Earlier, when you used to become a CA, you used to say, oh, you are a CA. Now it's like it's on. It's perfectly the same, and I think that's a very, very relevant point that you have made, because of the way things are changing.
And I think don't get me wrong. I think accountants are very well respected still. I mean, both my parents are accountants actually.
True.
But it's just that the reaction is a bit different now. So we cannot fall into the same trap. We should learn from our learn from historical data. That's what actuaries do.
True. So the last one is, does anyone need to have a working experience in the field of insurance in order to pursue actuarial science, in order to clear papers of actuarial science?
That is a good question. So if I talk about the UK curriculum, obviously the US is a bit different, and also the Hong Kong one is a bit different as well, and a bit in France. But I think generally, when you ask me, do you need to work in the insurance industry to clear papers? Again, a very typical actuarial answer, it depends on which paper. I'm going to say, like, in general, what you'll find is that the exams are split into broadly two parts. So one part is like the technical, is like the mathematical models, you're doing distributions, doing calculations, all that sort of stuff. Those ones, I would say, probably you don't need insurance experience. So for example, the CT exams of my days, I think they're now called CB, CS, CMs. Those early exams probably don't need insurance experience. But when you get to the later parts, where it's actually talking about what happens in real life, regulations, and not even that, even for the, some of the exams talk about writing up an audit trail, writing a report summary, communications papers, where you're actually presenting something. I mean, at least for me, when I did it, I had to physically present something. But now I think it's just typing emails or something like that. But for those papers, certainly I think having an insurance career would help you, because then you would know, okay, what would I do at work? And you think, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's what I would do. Or you might recall, oh, that's what I did 2 weeks ago when I was calculating the rates of premium. Then you can write it better in your exam. So it depends on which stage you are at in your actuarial career. Yeah, that's how I'd answer your question.
Perfect. So for the initial papers, no as such work experience required, but as you go ahead, it is advisable to have one.
Definitely, so that you can relate to it when you come to answering the questions.
Great. So I would now, Devarshi, if you could open, if you could put on the chat window, and if anyone here has questions, we would want to take up a couple of questions before we could end the session. So anyone here has any questions can put it up on the chat window. Devarshi, if you could allow people to chat. Yeah, he's allowed it. You guys can put in case you have any questions specifically.
That's very quick. Okay, I will, in danger of not being able to read all the messages in time, I will.
Yeah, I will select it for you. And you can answer the ones that are there. What is the major difference between an actuary and a data scientist?
Okay, so I think that's a good question. I hinted that at some response before, but let me tell you what I think the main difference is. So I think the main difference between actuaries and data scientists are that I think actuaries are more business focused, whereas data scientists are more mathematical and deeper into the analysis and models. So if you ask me, what's more important to a business? Well, again, it depends on what business it is, right? If you're working in places like Facebook or Twitter, where they're run by technology, Facebook, Amazon, or whatever, basically their whole company is based on technology. Obviously, data scientists would be more important, right? Because you just want the best models, you want the quickest models. But if you're working in places like insurance, or even supermarkets, or places where it's not built on technology, right? Actuaries have more business sense. They understand the real world better, they also know a bit of modeling to be able to solve problems. So I think that's the main difference, whether you have the business sense or not.
Great. I see continuously, guys. I'll pick up a couple more before I end it.
I also see lots of questions. So yeah, I will leave that to you. Thank you for taking on the difficult task.
How important is programming in the actuarial profession?
Yeah, that's a great one as well. And I think you can see in the recent changes to the actuarial exams, the qualifications, is that there's a bigger focus on programming. And even at work, if I just share a bit of my career, is that you do see lots of actuaries learning and picking up programming. So even simple things like on Microsoft Excel, there's like the VBA language, and then obviously you've got the famous ones like Python, R, Java. We're slowly picking that up, and the question was, is it important? I'd say massively. The reason is because, just as I shared, if we don't pick this up right, what happens is data scientists will be able to pick up business skills. And once they pick up the how to communicate with the business people, they're basically actuaries, but better, So in order to not fall behind and in order to keep up with the, the fast changing world at the moment where everything is technology, we definitely have to pick up some sort of programming. We don't have to learn it inside out, right? But we at least have to know how to read something, read the code, read what someone has typed so that we are able to communicate with, the computer.
Yeah, so just to add on, these days, I think technology is so important that even I would say the accountants, everyone has to learn technology. Yes. When I say learn, I think you have pointed out very well. It is just to ensure that you don't have to know it in and out, but just to ensure that you perform your functions correctly. So coding is very, very, very important.
Agreed. Yeah.
I'll take the last one. And my God, so many.
So
Can you talk about the geographical mobility of an actuary?
Yeah, that's also a great one. So I can talk about myself here. So I moved from UK to Hong Kong, and actually, when I was in UK, I was getting I've actually was sent to India to work for a week there actually, and I've also been to places in Europe and also been sent to US as well. And then even in Hong Kong, where I work now, I'm being sent to places like Malaysia, and Thailand. So obviously the Asian region here, Southeast Asian region, sorry. And the reason is because, as a skill set and also in general, actuaries are in demand all over the world. So you talk about the US having 32,000 actuaries there, but it's still not that many, if I'm honest. And if you're being employed by a company that has a geographical reach globally, chances are you might be asked to share experience or even help out some countries which might need your skill set. So that's why the mobility is very high. It's very easy to move abroad as an actuary. I would not be concerned about that at all.
Yes, Sarthak. So you can easily move out. Guys, I see a lot of questions. I would say the education related questions, guys, we would be more than happy to answer, which are India specific questions. What I suggest is, guys, you will get an email from us and you can schedule an appointment with a counselor. The education related question would be answered by them specifically because these are very, very India specific. What is commerce, science, and all those areas that you have highlighted here. So I would prefer that our counselors would answer it. So the last one would be since sir has put it up twice or thrice. Could you tell us more about FRM?
Okay, cool. I guess FRM is obviously the financial risk management qualification. Very, I guess, very what do you call it? Very respected in the U.S., but also in Hong Kong. I'm not sure about the other parts of the world, but obviously it's a global qualification, which I think complements the actuarial qualification quite well, because what it gives you is a very good overview of risk management, corporate governance, what to look out for in a company. And the reason why this is important is because, as actuaries, we deal with so many numbers, and what we do is we're very good at looking at certain things and looking at the risks of certain businesses. And with the FRM qualification, you are able to put your analytical skills with the softer side of the FRM, and then sort of maybe come up with a solution which takes into account, not just the analytics, but the qualitative concerns as well of a business. So definitely something that's very useful for me, because I work in risk management. And I think with the evolution of the world focusing more and more on risk management, even just 12, 13 years ago with the global financial crisis, now with the COVID situation, and even if you go a bit back, not too long ago, there was a Great Depression in not Great Depression, but there was like a depression period in 1980s. There's a lot of focus on risk management and even regulations, even in banking, for example, insurance. There's more development of risk-based capital and risk-focused rules. FRM definitely something that would help you and help all of us a lot.
Perfect. So even I have done the FRM from GARP. So it is advisable, but somewhere later on your career. So in case anyone's planning a little later on your careers, not at a graduation level.
Agreed, fully agreed, because I think FRM also needs a bit of experience, so that you can relate to a lot of the theories that they teach you. So agreed, fully agreed with that one. Great.
So I hope we have tried to answer all of the questions, because we would run out of time right now. Guys, in case we haven't answered any specific questions and you want us to answer, feel free to send us an email. You already can reach out to Xavier on his Insta page as well, or you can get in touch with us for email. Any specific questions with regards to the Indian education system, we would be more than happy to schedule a counseling with our counselors, and they would be guiding you through. There's someone who's raised their hand. Any specific thing, Nupur ma'am?
Xavier's Instagram page.
Yeah. You want the Xavier? You want the link?
Yeah.
Xavier, is it okay if I just put it up on the? We will put it up on the chat. Devarsh, if you could just put it up on the chat. Mr.HongKong.actuary. Great. So guys, Devarshi will be sending out an email or we will be sending out an email as discussed. In case you want any further idea, understanding, feel free to put up for the counseling sessions, and we'll be more than happy to solve it. Thanks guys for being such a patient audience and listening us through. Hope majorly we have answered all of your questions, and we'll be happy to answer more individually in case required. Thanks guys. Thanks Xavier for joining us and explaining everything to the students.
No, thank you very much for inviting me here. Such an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Have a good evening and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.